Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Christine here with another discussion on Legendary Lords in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, based on your votes in the polls that I've been doing in the community tab on my channel. So, for the Beastmen, in last place we have Mogr the Shadowgave, and I really wonder if people didn't vote for Mogr simply because he is a meme and has been a meme for a very long time. Thank you, Tarif, for that one. His faction effects give him Chaos Spawn, Casualty Replenishment, Chaos Undivided Corruption, and Horde Building Construction Cost. The Casualty Replenishment can be beneficial. Chaos Corruption doesn't really matter all that much. Horde Building Construction Cost, however, and Chaos Spawn, absolutely worth it. And Mogr himself also gets the Spoiler Raiding stance, which spreads corruption and causes attrition. That's, by the way, one of the reasons why Chaos Corruption benefit, faction-wide benefit, is not necessarily too important. He's also immune to Alpha attrition, and he will always remain wounded for no more than one turn. That's where the memes come in with Mogr. He just keeps coming back and back and back. On top of that, he does have horrible regeneration for Chaos Spawn, are a menace for Jabber's lives over there, which causes damage combatants next to them, and weapon strength for Chaos Spawn, Sangors, and Jabber's lives, melee defense as well over there. He also causes more attrition with his Spoiler Raiding stance, income from raiding, more campaign movement range, Chaos Undivided Corruption in adjacent provinces, that's actually useful, as well as, well, a bunch of other benefits as well. Suffice to say, he is pretty decent, and unlike quite a few other Beastmen campaigns, he actually has a pretty easy starting position. His only challenge is this army right here early on. Like, you take this element, you put the hurt zone, next turn you might be attacked over here by this army, or maybe not, and you end up having to fight the siege, which is not really a problem because you do start with 2 Chaos Spawn as well as a Gore Bowl. So I wouldn't be too worried if you're playing this campaign about the starting position. The problem is longer term. Going Bretonnia is not recommended because it's going to be difficult to get Rituals of Ruination. But you can hop on a boat and go to Tylea and pester Aranessa if you want to. Or even go over here to pester Archon the Black and Rapans. And it can be tricky over here against Rapans in particular. But if you do win that situation, you end up dominating a significant portion of the map over there. Your victory conditions do require you to destroy Athaloran, or at least destroy Orion, and the Fey Enchantress, which honestly Grom might do for you. And then you have to destroy basically the Empire in Bretonnia, and then, of course, raise or conquer the Oak of Ages. It's interesting looking back at the Wood Elf campaign, the mini campaign that they had in Warhammer 1, and how Mogr would just keep spawning continuously armies in that campaign. Well, this is Mogr's revenge. But yeah, I can understand why people wouldn't find him that appealing. He is better, I think, than the perception of him, at the very least. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have Tarax the Brass Bull. The other Beastmen campaign are not worth talking about. I just mentioned Mogr to indicate who was last. But Tarax got over 80% of the vote in the poll that I did, for pretty clear and obvious reasons. He just has more mechanics to deal with than the other Beastmen. He does get faction effects as minus 25% dread cost for increasing capacity of Minotaurs, which is useful because Minotaurs are one of the main units you want to get in a campaign, and then you have Rampage and Momentum mechanics. Skill-wise, I mean item-wise, skill-wise, it's pretty straightforward, just, various combat abilities like Gore Feast, which gives him replenishment, unit capacity for Gorgons, and armor for Gorgons, Cygors, Giants, all that kind of good stuff. And he does get the River of Blood effect after winning battles, which increases leadership for Chaos races and increases leadership for non-Chaos races, which is always good to have. And you can get a bunch of benefits in his campaign. But really, what makes Tarax special is the Rampage mechanic. you can select at different tiers a series of benefits. At tier 1, you can have Winds of Magic, Ward Save, Blood Greed for his entire army, or you can reduce leadership in his region. You get a bit of dread. Like, reducing leadership by 8 is actually pretty significant because, one, Beastmen, a lot of Beastmen units don't have the best leadership in the world, and a lot of the opponents you may face as Tarax do, so reducing that actually helps you out. At tier 2, you can get income from raising settlements, dread gain from battles, get the Dark Moon Solar Eclipse event, or reduce the momentum cost to replenish campaign movement range, which is pretty damn powerful. And then at tier 3 of a Rampage, you can either get a hero recruitment cost benefit for different types of heroes, so hero recruit rank and hero recruit rank for that particular type of hero, or you can get a further dread benefit for that. And you just get extra dread in this campaign. But on top of that, when you do reach tier 1, when you complete tier 1, you can use this momentum, you can use it to replenish Tarax's movement range. Yes, the steamroller freight train. I wish Scarbrand was as good as this, honestly. Like, this is one of the issues I have with Scarbrand. Like, Tarax is so freaking awesome in comparison from my personal perspective. That's just where I stand. Of course, you don't necessarily want to use it in every situation. Like, over there, it was not necessarily the good one, just demonstration purposes. But yeah, you can steamroll a campaign faster. And this is actually important for Beastmen, because you want to get these kind of rituals of ruination done as quickly as possible and really, you know, get more armies in a campaign, get more power in a campaign as quickly as you possibly can. So having more dread, having dread rewards, having that just flat out makes him the best campaign that is available for the Beastmen right now, by far and away. The others, not even worth playing. So what I'm trying to say here, you don't need to own the Beastmen DLC. You just need to own Silence and the Fury. Now, you will lose out on one aspect, specifically Confederation with the other Legendary Lords, which you can do as the Beastmen from a distance if you just get enough dread. Gee, I wonder where they got the Dwarf idea. Yes, Dwarves are copying a Beastman idea. Though it is better for the Dwarves, I might add, in a lot of ways. Because you're not having to use the same resource for everything. Still, you can get all the others. So, do you think the faction effects of the other campaigns are worth it? Or do you think Tarax's faction effects are better than others, and you can get the others even then? Like, you know, let's say we get Mogre over here, and guess what? We get his freaking army. Oh, yes. Yes, that is good. Kazrak is probably your first target because he gets wiped out so very damn easily in a campaign, but still, that's fun. Like, that is genuinely a lot of fun to go for. Let's move on to Bretonnia. For Bretonnia at number 4, we have Albrecht. What can be said about Albrecht that hasn't already been said? To be fair, he actually has a much better campaign than you might think, or at least better campaign effects. His campaign does suffer from one significant issue, I would say. Though I do personally believe he's at the bottom of the list because of the meme factor. But in terms of faction effects, he gets recruit rank benefits for Bretonnian Knights, he gets local recruitment duration for Bretonnian Knights, income from ports, immunity to high seas, reef, and storm attrition, which is all pretty good. His skill line over here, he gets coastal expansion, shipping lanes, so construction time for resource production, building, tradable resources, and then he gets better commandments than the other Bretonnian lords, because he gets peasant, or rather he buffs peasant's duty for more growth, 5 control, and 3% income, which means you can use peasant's duty over here to act as a growth benefit, income benefit, and control benefit all in once. And Bretonnia already has enormous growth. You also start with a tier 3 minor settlement over here, so that means very early on you can get 2 paladins in your campaign, questing knights, knights of the realm, and trebuchets. That is pretty damn substantial as a start. So why is Albrecht dead last? Well, beyond the meme factor, it's also that he's in freaking Lustria, which is a horrible area for every single campaign to be in. No joke, if this guy was an actual Bretonnia as he had been previously, I think he would actually be the best Bretonnian campaign. And I'm not exaggerating this on any way, in any way, shape, or form. You'd still have the issues of the vows, but if he literally started at war with Grom, I would take that over his current position. Like, if he started in Bordello at war with Grom over here, I would genuinely prefer that as a campaign start compared to the bloody misery that he has. Assuming he started with the tier 3 settlement, of course, over there. Oh, it's kind of funny, you have a research over here to get Aquitaine, which is always going to be wiped out by Grom. You use that, though, to get access to Paravon, because, yeah, you might be able to get a tier 3 city in Bretonnia over here, which can give you significant advantages. Because the Fey Enchantress might be the one who beats the crap out of Grom. Maybe. Regardless, the research also ultimately ends up with Corone, so you kind of want to go for it. It's really significant. I do think the Bretonian vow system is pretty crap. For every Bretonian campaign, I would recommend using the vow unlock mod. That just gives you the vows unlocked at certain levels as opposed to the objectives. But still, like, a lord that has good faction effects, good lord effects, but is utter rubbish just because of its starting position. And that's just a bloody plain fact. Also, his quest item, it requires him to go against Artosa. No thanks. That is my reaction to that. No freaking thanks with respect to that. But honestly, it's also, I think, that he's a knight-based character. Well, let me put it simply. Lou and Kur is cooler in that perspective. I wouldn't necessarily say better, though leading knight certainly. In terms of leading a faction, yeah, Alberic is actually quite good in that respect. It's just Lustria sucks, and there's nothing more to say. And number 3 for Bretonnia, we have the Fey Enchantress. Not exactly an exciting campaign, never really been an exciting campaign. I mean, she is certainly different than the 2 other knight characters that Bretonnia started with, be it Alberic or Lou and Leoncoeur, but I'll be honest, the Fey Enchantress is just not really that exciting to deal with. You get faction effect-wise, you get peasant economy plus 5 peasants available to the faction and 15% casualty replenishment. Those are certainly nice starting benefits, and for many other factions, many other Legendary Lords, those would be amazing starting benefits. However, you start with a tier 2 settlement, and Bretonnia has one of the best growths in the entire game, starting at 20 growth at tier 1 going to 40, so this is not really too important when you are playing with a Bretonian campaign. Because while certainly the casualty replenishment and the benefits will be, the benefits to peasants will be very useful in your very early game, after that, like once you get to tier 3, you increase damsel capacity, and you can do this in plenty of settlements, especially in Bretonian settlements where you start. And then after that, it just kind of doesn't really matter anymore. And even for herself as a lord in terms of her combat ability, yes, she causes fear. She has the Blessing of the Lady, which gives her damage resistance. But the thing is, she has a difficult time with vows. She actually starts with the worst vow situation out of any Bretonian character, like by far. So you're going to have to spend time. You can fix this with mods. Her special skill line is not particularly great, and besides that, you can get it for Confederation. Bretonnia doesn't have a difficult time with Confederation. It is useful, certainly, though not necessarily everything. Like, yeah, you can get the benefit for Grail Knights and Grail Guardians for her army. You do get the growth benefit faction-wide, which is redundant because, yeah, Bretonnia has an amazing growth and amazing control, so pointless. The most useful thing that the Fey Enchantress does have is wins a magic power reserve capacity for her own army and ward save benefits. She is a lore master of Lore of Life, so she is certainly going to be able to take advantage of that with her skill. But from my perspective, when it comes to factions, when it comes to races that have the ability of getting a lot of casters, having a caster lord is not necessarily a huge benefit from my point of view. Because it's just better to focus a lord on a melee skill line and have them duel other enemy lords and combine that with heroes like paladins, which you can get in every other Bretonian faction except Lewin. So it's not really a tangible benefit. You do start with the tier 2 capital, which is beneficial, but certainly doesn't compare to Alberic starting with tier 3 minor settlement. So I mean, I'm not sold on it. The only significant benefit I would say that exists in this campaign is you do start with Grail Guardians and you do start with Blessed Field Trebuchets, both of which are amazing units, and both of them are tier 5 units. So that is a substantial early game benefit, but 2 units do not make a campaign, to be blunt about it, especially given the meta of Warhammer 3. So yeah, this campaign I voted down for a reason. Keep in mind, I'm just explaining things how I view them. People voted for any number of reasons. I guess it's just not an exciting campaign, and it's kind of a rough situation. Like, not because you're dealing with Rom, but because Ikka Claw and Mogre are going to harass the crap out of you as well. So, make of that what you will. Let's move on. Number 2, we have Réponse de Lyonesse, who probably shouldn't even be in this game because she's kind of supposed to be dead by this point in the Warhammer timeline. But regardless, Réponse does have a really good campaign in a lot of ways. She starts with Field Trebuchets, Knights of the Realm, Questing Knights. She starts with Kofir, which gives her Knights Errant, and it is a tier 2 minor settlement, from which she can get more trebuchets. She can get an extra paladin if she wants to once she gets it to tier 3, mages, all that. And she can confederate Zandri very, very quickly and get herself an additional trebuchet or another one from T-Gun if she captures it. Though she could also try and confederate T-Gun if she really wants to play with that. Probably not recommended. Still, you do get free control in all provinces, that's meaningless, but minus 50% upkeep for embedded heroes, pretty good. Melee defense for Questing Knights, really, really good. And her ability in combat of using the Halo of Maidenly Wrath is very useful. Line up a bunch of trebuchets, send Réponse in the middle of the entire freaking enemy army, and watch as they can't kill her, and instead your trebuchets just kill literally everything around her. That is a perfectly valid strategy. She does get physical resistance for peasants. That's not particularly important, but she does get leadership benefits for peasants as well, and overall has a good skill line. And she has a really good starting position, as well as the water mechanic, which certainly helps her out. She can get vows unlocked for her lords and heroes easier than in every other campaign. You could argue technically Alberic, but the distances in Lustria and the movement in Lustria is of such a nature that that's not really doable in a lot of ways. So Réponse, from my perspective, is the best campaign, but people voted her number 2. I guess some people really do like masochism, because at number 1, it is Louis Leoncoeur, the King of Bretonnia. King Arthur, if you really want to go for that. Well, is it King Arthur? Not quite sure. Honestly, his campaign is very questionable. He's got campaign movement range, which is very useful, but the leadership power size for lords when attacking, yeah, that's as useless of a benefit as you can think of. On the flip side, Lewin is a one-man doom stack over here, especially once he gets his Hippogriff mount over there, and once he gets replenishment in combat as well as other benefits. That is certainly very, very powerful. He does get Blessing of the Lady as well as leadership against Chaos, more or less, and also he starts with all the vows unlocked for himself, which is certainly a very powerful ability. I really don't think Lewin deserves to be number 1 on this list, but you guys voted for him, so yeah, he's number 1, according to your votes. He starts with the tier 1 settlement, that is very questionable. He starts next to Bellicor, who's going to continuously freaking harass you. I mean, I guess people do like pain and suffering, because that is what you're going to get with Louis Leoncoeur. He does start with a replenishment hero and a magical hero, so that is very useful. You can certainly get the paladin pretty quickly in this campaign. And yeah, run around with 2 heroes, with the 2 different heroes that Bretonnia does have. So it does work. You can certainly make it work, but yeah, my least favorite Bretonian campaign, personally. But that's my opinion, not yours. Moving on to the Chaos Dwarves. For the Chaos Dwarves, in 3rd place we have Zaytan the Black. He does get an extra convoy, which is pretty useful, recruitment cost for artillery and war machines, and on top of that, Zaytan does benefit from being able to get a lot of casualties post-battle, as well as having extra recruitment. He's actually quite very strong. He gets regeneration. He's crappy in skirmish, but he's really good in campaign, like ward save, regeneration, various other benefits, armor, more casualties post-battle, labor post-battle as well. So, okay, in every battle you fight, you get labor. You'll always get labor as the Chaos Dwarves. So then you have a post-battle option that can give you labor. So that's what Subjugator is giving you. And then, of course, a bunch of other benefits as well in your campaign. The problem with Zaytan the Black is this. he starts with the tier 1 settlement, which generally wouldn't affect many campaigns. In fact, starting with 2 tier 1 settlements would generally be considered a great thing in most campaigns. Not in a Chaos Dwarf campaign, not when the others start with a tier 2 settlement. See, your income works so differently as a Chaos Dwarf that actually starting with this hurts you significantly in the early game. You can make it work, but then on top of that, combine it with the fact that your campaign is trying to push you east, but you've got Grimgor in your backside. Yeah, it's a pretty rough early game, and it's not necessarily a fun early game. I would say Zaytan is probably the best in the long term just because of the many laborers he can get, or he certainly becomes much stronger longer term. But yeah, the early game situation is absolutely not in his favor. Do note, this is the first campaign I ever finished as the Chaos Dwarf, so yeah, early game, not that great, the worst early game of every campaign, but long term pays off. But here's the thing, the early game is certainly the more interesting part of a campaign, so I can understand why people voted him in last position. I think like it's just like the focus of the campaign, like starting to move east and having to turn around west to deal with Grimgor is very questionable as a campaign design. Pretty disappointing, actually, because I think, like, yeah, Zaytan would do better if not for that. In the number 2 spot, we have Astrogoth. Astrogoth is the generic lord of the Chaos Dwarfs. His faction effects just give you control, research rate, and conclave influence, all of which are pointless because you can't increase research rate beyond that, and a lot of Chaos Dwarfs research is pretty damn fast anyway. And so research benefits, unless you get a significant amount of it, are kind of meaningless. Control benefits, pretty bloody meaningless when you have both Chaos Corruption, which gives you control, as well as labor action that gives you tons of control, so pretty damn pointless. And Conclave Influence 10%, just not really important either, so his faction effects are nothing to write home about. His Lord effects, on the other hand, well, Winds of Magic benefits, Diplomacy benefits with Chaos factions, Allied Recruitment, pretty sweet stuff over there. Bull Centaur benefits over there for himself, as well as armament costs to increase capacity for them. Pretty sweet. Bounce spell, Burning Wrath, and hero capacity +2 to all heroes, as well as hero and lord recruit rank +3 faction-wide. That is certainly a very useful benefit, especially early game. I would say Astrogoth has the best early game campaign of any of the Chaos Dwarf campaigns in the game right now. Who knows, maybe CA will do another Chaos Dwarf. I would be pretty surprised by that, but still, he does start with a tier 2 settlement. It's a fairly cozy, comfortable position over here, and you do start with the ability of recruiting Bull Centaurs as well as a Bull Centaur Tarok. So yeah, you can get some pretty decent units early on. Infantry, flying unit over here with the Bretonnia. You can destroy Grimgor before he becomes a mega threat, and then have a pretty chill campaign. It's just he doesn't have the ridiculousness of other campaigns, and honestly, his starting position is a bit boring. I mean, dealing with Grimgor is always a stressful experience, though even that has kind of been nullified a bit because you got Tamarkan to potentially hold Grimgor in check. And unlike Zaytan and Drazov, you can actually avoid Grimgor fighting him because Grimgor is not going to go for Saber Mountain to attack you. He might go for Plains of Zar, but it is unlikely. Still, it is a good campaign. It's just a bit duller than it could be. Like, I would say Zaytan is more exciting to play in a lot of ways. Like, Zaytan does have better faction effects at the very least in the long term. Or he gains so much freaking labor, it doesn't matter. And that caravan benefit is a benefit to your economy, benefit to materials, benefit to labor. So don't ignore that, which Zaytan does have. Cool character, though. Great character design. But yeah, understandable why he didn't get the number 1 spot in your vote. And in the number 1 spot for the Chaos Dwarves, it is Drazov Dash, and he has a significant economic benefit with his faction effect of reducing armament cost for all unit capacity upgrades and 10% armament output. He is really good in melee, he's good with magic effects, he is genuinely the best mage in the entire game, major lord in the entire game, because he's both pretty good in melee just purely because of the mount he has. And then he can use one of the most powerful spells in the game outside of the Cataclysm spells that Gelt has through the Flames of Asgore. So really significant benefits over there. He gets benefits for Gadai, he gets more raw materials through his special skill line, he gets benefits to Infernal Guard, he has a good wound recovery time, he's fairly durable over there. He gets, as a Lord effect, he gets the research rate benefit that Astrogoth has. And he also reduces construction time for buildings and construction costs for building. This is very substantial, actually, considering it. And on top of that, what really sells this campaign is just the sheer variety. You've got Tretch, you've got Imric, you've got Gorst, you've got Kugaf, you've got Greases, you've got Grimgor that you can't deal with early on, so he ends up being a potentially really big threat for you to deal with in this particular campaign. And when they add Neferata, it's going to be even better, I would say. So lots of variety in terms of the way this campaign can play out. And because Chaos Dwarfs have a lot of climate, it is pretty great. You also start with the limited use nuclear weapon over here because of the prototype Mega Mortar. It's not the same power as Eka Claw's nuke. Don't worry, we'll get to Skaven soon enough. But it's still a very significant power benefit that you do have available in this campaign early on. So Drazif just has a great campaign, and he's always had a great campaign. Certainly the most exciting campaign to play in the early game of the Chaos Dwarves, and you can make it even more exciting by getting a Lord, by playing, say, Astrogoth's campaign, saving a Lord with Hammer on defeat trait, and getting that hero capacity to all heroes. So you can have an even better early game than Astrogoth, or nullify the early game benefit that Astrogoth has. Because one of the main benefits Astrogoth has is that hero capacity. Well, you can get that as well as Drazif, and in fact, you can even get it earlier. Obviously, you can use it in Astrogoth's campaign as well, but still. It does work. It is genuinely a campaign that does work very well. A great design, great campaign area, just lots of possibilities and variety. No Drazif campaign kind of ends up the same. Like, there's always differences. You gotta ask yourself, am I gonna face the Wrath of Grimgor on turn 20, or is it gonna be turn 30? Will Greases come down from the mountains? Will Gorst declare war on me? Will Imric beat the crap out of me? Will Tretch be Tretch? Those are all questions. Oh, and don't forget the might of the freaking buffed up dwarves as well, coming in from the west. So, lots of possibilities in this campaign. And it is certainly a really fun experience to go through. And that would be it for the moment. Next up, we start talking about demons, greenskins, and Skaven. We shall see.